Along my journey to becoming a leadership coach, I learned a lot about how people's brains work. Of course, brains are pretty complicated, and so there are people who make whole careers out of translating the complexity of brain function into models that mere mortals like us can actually use. One of those models describes two modes of thinking: possibility thinking and necessity thinking. A necessity thinker does most of what they do in hopes of avoiding negative consequences. For example, they complete a project in hopes that they won't miss a deadline, or they follow the doctor's orders so that they won't have a heart attack. A possibility thinker does most of what they do in hopes of achieving a desired positive benefit. They work toward a promotion or to win an award, or they exercise to build strength and stamina and have more energy. Most folks use both of these modes of thinking to a greater or lesser degree, depending on the situation. And most folks lean a little more one way or the other by habit or tendency. Necessity thinking is driven a bit by fear, and possibility thinking is driven a bit by love. And we all exist in both of those spaces at various times in our lives. In general, I myself lean a little bit more toward possibility thinking. It's one of the reasons why I'm struggling a bit with our pandemic situation. It's hard to work toward things when the future is uncertain. It also made it a little bit of a challenge for me to get my head around this idea of the International Day Against Homophobia, Transphobia, and Biphobia. I found myself confused by the idea of a whole day based on avoiding a negative. And yet, all of these phobias are definitely negatives and definitely worth avoiding. As I learned on its website, the International Day Against Homophobia, Transphobia, and Biphobia was created in 2004 to draw attention to the violence and discrimination experienced by lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex people, and all the other people with diverse sexual orientations, gender identities or expressions, and sex characteristics. Fear drives people to behave in unspeakably horrible ways toward one another. Some of the people in the world are afraid of things they don't understand. They feel threatened by that which is different from themselves, or in some cases, maybe not different from themselves. They fear what they perceive as abnormal because at some point in their lives, someone taught or told them that there's only one right way to be a girl or to be a boy, or one right way to fall in love or build a family. In fact, the day of May 17th was specifically chosen for this observance because it was this day in 1990, that wasn't all that long ago, that the World Health Organization declassified homosexuality as a mental disorder. So indeed, this is a day that marks moving away from something negative. Until 1990, just 30 years ago, homosexuality was considered a mental illness. LGBTQ people were officially abnormal, and that gave fearful people a way to justify their fear. Needless to say, 30 years is a pretty short time in the evolution of cultural attitudes, so there are still plenty of fearful people who continue even today to use this outdated, small-minded point of view to justify their fear. So May 17th, the day against, is a day to draw the attention of media, corporations, government officials, celebrities, and all those who drive cultural evolution to the alarming situation faced by people with diverse sexual orientations, gender expressions, and sex characteristics. It's a day against fear. And much the same way that we can boil modes of thought down to the dichotomy of possibility thinking and necessity thinking, we can boil most human emotion down to the dichotomy of fear and love. If this is a day against fear, then it's a day for love. So let's play with that idea just a little bit. I've talked about what fear does. Fear finds ways to justify itself. Fear calls for backup. Fear believes that whatever it doesn't understand is an acceptable target for hatred and violence. And love, being the opposite of that, does not do those things. And as it turns out, as we follow this meandering line of logic a little further into the funny ways that negatives and positives intertwine, there are a lot of things that love doesn't do. Love, as Paul wrote to the Corinthians in one of my favorite passages in the Bible, is not jealous or boastful. It is not arrogant or rude. Love does not insist on its own way. So love does not trumpet the one right way to live or to express yourself or to be a boy or a girl or to enter a relationship or to create a family. Love does not rejoice in wrong. Love does not ever consider judgment or contempt, violence or cruelty to be acceptable means of counteracting that which opposes it. Most importantly in all of that, love does not set conditions. Love does not say, you are worthy as long as you use the bathroom that matches the genitals you were born with. Love does not say, you may be part of society only if you have a state-sanctioned partnership with exactly one member of the opposite gender as defined by religion or government. If I, as an individual, wish to enter into an intimate relationship with another individual and possibly bear children with that person, I care about their gender and their sexual orientation, and that's appropriate. Under 100% of the remaining possible circumstances of my interaction with that person, it is none of my business. If I believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every person, including that one, there is exactly one appropriate way for me to feel with respect to their gender expression or sexual orientation, and that is not to care. Fear cares about that stuff. Fear needs to know so that it can pass judgment. Fear needs to care so that it can justify its very existence. But love doesn't care. Love doesn't judge, and so love doesn't need to know one single thing about someone's gender or orientation except what pronouns I can use to help them feel seen and respected. Love also doesn't care about that brief moment of awkwardness when I ask about pronouns, or let someone know what pronouns I prefer. Love is unconcerned whether a fearful person might be offended that it came up in the conversation without the opportunity to pass judgment, or say something mean or run away. Love can't be bothered with any of that. Life is too short to make enemies of people who are different. Love doesn't care. Love doesn't care, and that is a beautifully positive sort of negative. But as a description of love, even in this relatively narrow context, it is necessary but not sufficient. We've established what love doesn't do. So now, what does love do? Love speaks up. Love stands with people who are marginalized or ignored or oppressed or hated or threatened for aspects of themselves that they did not choose. Love defends the right of people to live long, prosperous, joyful lives, free from the violence of those who have chosen fear. Love goes to bat for people. Love shows up at the Pride Festival, the protest march, at the school board meeting. Love signs the petition and calls the member of Congress. Love actively seeks to include by flinging its doors wide and opening its arms. Love looks into the eyes of each person it encounters. Love listens with an open mind and an open heart. Love does not seek to fix people. Love often doesn't even seek to help people because love recognizes that respect for human dignity means respect for human agency. Love seeks to serve people. Love lifts people up and celebrates all that they are and all that they are becoming. Love acknowledges their aspirations and their journey and their struggle. Love provides an escort through the gauntlet of fear. Love is certainly against homophobia, transphobia, and biphobia, and all the other phobias, because love is the opposite of fear. Where love abides fully, fear is all but erased. And love is far more interested in being for acceptance, inclusion, fairness, respect, and caring than in being against anything. So my invitation to you, my beloved community, is to reflect on what you are for on this International Day Against. Every day presents a new opportunity to lift up our principles by lifting up the people around us. Every day presents an opportunity for us to show up for our LGBTQIA friends and neighbors. There are marches and government meetings to attend, petitions to sign and letters to write, funds to raise, and individuals to escort through the gauntlet of fear. If you choose even one of these actions to take each day, we can banish all that hate and all that fear. We can, and we must. Blessed be.